My name is Brenda Scott. I'm 33 years old, and this morning I signed the purchase agreement for my eighth investment property, a mixed-use commercial building worth $340,000. My hands were shaking as I held the pen, not from fear, from the weight of what I had built in complete silence. But tonight, as I drive to my parents' house for Sunday dinner, they still think I waste my architecture degree on little renovation hobbies. They still see me as their practical, too careful daughter who never takes real risks. They have absolutely no idea what I've been building. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been completely invisible to the people who should see you most? Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Drop a comment below telling me where in the world you're watching from. Now let me tell you how I got here. The hardest part isn't the work, it's sitting at the dinner table while they erase you. I've been practicing this smile for 28 years. I smiled when they took out $80,000 in loans to send my older brother Dylan to a private college, while I worked 2 jobs to cover what my scholarship didn't. I smiled when Dylan dropped out junior year, and they said he was finding himself. And I'm smiling now as I pull into their driveway. Sunday dinner at the Scott house. Same routine for 3 decades. My father's truck in the driveway. My brother Dylan's new SUV parked at an angle like he owns the place. I can already hear the noise through the door before I even knock. I walk in. The house smells like pot roast. My mother, Patricia, barely looks up from the stove. "You're late, honey. Go help your father set the table." My father, Richard, is opening wine in the dining room, already laughing at something Dylan said. My brother is on the couch with his wife Stephanie, and I can tell by the energy in the room that tonight is about them. It's always about them. We all sit down. Dad pours the wine, and that's when I see it. The white envelope on the table in front of Dylan's plate. My stomach drops. I know what this is before anyone says a word. Dylan picks up the envelope with this grin, this entitled, expectant grin. He doesn't even look surprised. "Mom, Dad, you didn't have to do this." But his hand is already opening it. $30,000, my father announces, his voice booming with pride. "A little something for the house you found. You're taking a big step, son. We want to support that." My mother actually has tears in her eyes. "We're so proud of you, Dylan. You're finally settling down, building something real." Dylan pulls out the check and Stephanie squeals. She actually squeals. This is perfect. This means we can get into the neighborhood we wanted, the one with the good schools. I'm sitting there, fork halfway to my mouth, just watching. My father turns to me, still beaming. "Isn't this exciting, Brenda? Your brother's buying a house, a real house, not one of those rental things, a family home." I force my smile. "That's wonderful, Dylan. Congratulations." Dylan leans back in his chair, completely comfortable in the spotlight. "Thanks, sis. You know how it is. You gotta think big. Take real risks." I'm watching him, this man who has never saved a dollar in his life, hold a check for $30,000 that he did nothing to earn. My father raises his glass. To Dylan. "Taking chances, building a future. We're proud of you, son." They all clink glasses. I lift mine. The wine tastes like dust. Then my father turns to me, almost like an afterthought. "And what about you, Brenda? Still doing those little fix-up projects?" I set my glass down carefully. "Actually, I've been working on something significant," I'm starting to say. But Dylan cuts me off with a laugh. "Let me guess. Another rental property? Sis, when are you going to stop playing with dollhouses and get a real career?" The table laughs. My mother touches Dylan's arm. "Dylan, don't be rude. Your sister's renovation hobby is... It's very nice. Very practical." My father nods, his face serious now. He looks at me with what he thinks is wisdom. Brenda, honey, leave the big business talk to your brother. Stick to what you're good at. Those little projects are fine. They keep you busy. But you're 33 now. You need to think about your future. My mother leans in, her voice soft and concerned. Have you thought about settling down? James is such a nice man. Maybe focus on that instead of these projects? You've always been so good at that craft stuff, dear. Remember those dollhouses you made when you were little? I sit there, perfectly still. My hands are under the table, clenched so tight my nails are cutting into my palms. They have no idea that this very morning, I closed on a commercial building worth more than their house. They have no idea that in my bank account, in my LLC named Helena Holdings after my grandmother, I have a portfolio worth $2.1 million. They see a girl with a hobby. They see their practical, quiet daughter who is always good with her hands. They don't see the empire. They can't see what they refuse to look at. Being the overlooked daughter doesn't happen all at once. It's not a single loud moment. It's a slow fade. It's 1,000 tiny cuts that teach you to be small, to be quiet, to expect nothing. You learn to speak softly because your voice gets drowned out anyway. You learn to celebrate alone because the applause is always for someone else. You learn to be the easy one, the independent one, the one who doesn't need anything. My entire childhood was built on this lesson. I was the second child, the daughter, the one with auburn hair and a serious face. Dylan was the firstborn son, loud and charismatic, and always in motion. He was the one they saw. I was the one who learned to blend into the wallpaper. When I was 14, I entered a regional architecture competition. I spent 4 months designing and building a scale model of sustainable low-income housing. I taught myself computer-aided design using library computers because we didn't have one at home. I researched green building materials, solar panel placement, water conservation systems. I calculated costs per square foot. I designed floor plans that maximized space efficiency. I built every wall, every tiny window by hand using balsa wood and precision cutting tools I bought with my allowance. I would stay up until 2 in the morning working on that model in my bedroom. My hands would cramp from the detailed work. I had cuts all over my fingers from the X-Acto knife. But I was building something beautiful, something that mattered, something that could actually help people. When I won first place for the entire region, I brought home a $1,000 scholarship check and a trophy almost as tall as me. The judges said my design was the most innovative they'd seen in years. They said I had a gift, a real future in architecture. I set them on the kitchen counter while Mom was making dinner. She glanced at them while chopping vegetables. "Oh, that's nice, honey. What's it for?" "My architecture competition. I won first place. Regional champion." "That's great," she said, still chopping, not looking up. "Where should I put this?" I asked, holding the trophy. "Oh, just put it somewhere safe, honey. Maybe in your room." When Dad got home, I showed him the trophy, the scholarship letter, the article in the local paper about the competition winners. He looked at it for maybe 10 seconds while loosening his tie. "That's real nice, Brenda. Shows you've got good hands. That's a useful skill. Maybe you could do interior design or something when you grow up." Good hands. Like I'd built a birdhouse for a school project. Like I hadn't just won a competition against students from 30 schools. Like I hadn't just earned $1,000 for college. Like I hadn't just proven I had real talent. 2 months later, Dylan made the varsity football team. He was a backup player. He sat on the bench most of the season, but my parents threw a huge party. Dad bought him new cleats, gloves, a training bag. Mom had a cake made with a football on it. They invited the whole neighborhood. The photo of Dylan in his jersey went in the main hallway. My trophy went in the garage. When they cleaned out the garage 2 years later, they threw it away. I never said anything. I just learned. My accomplishments were hobbies. Dylan's were victories. This pattern followed us through everything. When it was time for college, I worked my ass off. I studied, I got perfect grades, I built an incredible portfolio. I got accepted to the State University's architecture program with a 75% academic scholarship. I was so proud. I thought, this they have to see. This is real money saved. This is a real achievement. I told them at dinner. I got into the architecture program. Full scholarship. Almost everything covered. My father smiled, looking relieved. That's wonderful, Brenda. Very smart. That's very practical. That saves us a lot of money. Saves them money. That was my achievement. Not my dream, not my hard work. Just a discount on their expenses. 1 year later, Dylan applied to a private college 3 states away. His grades were mediocre. He had no scholarship. The tuition was $40,000 a year. I listened to my parents have stressed, hushed arguments in their bedroom for 2 weeks. Then they called a family meeting. Dad stood at the head of the table. We've decided. We're going to make it work. Dylan needs this experience. He needs to find himself. We're taking out loans, but it's worth it. You have to follow your dreams. I sat there eating my pasta. My practical scholarship wasn't about my dream. It was about their budget. Dylan's expensive, impractical college was about following his dreams. They took out $80,000 in loans. For him to find himself. He dropped out junior year. Came home. Got a job in sales. And nobody ever mentioned the $80,000 again. I graduated with honors. Got a job at a mid-size architecture firm as a junior architect. I told them I was hired. My mother smiled. That's wonderful, honey. Does it have good benefits? My father nodded. Architecture. That's a tough field, Brenda. Very competitive. Make sure you have a backup plan. A backup plan. Dylan was on his 3rd sales job in 2 years, and they were still calling him a go-getter. I had a salaried position with benefits at a respected firm, and they were worried about my backup plan. The only person who ever really saw me was my grandmother, Babcia Helena. She was my mother's mother, a Polish immigrant who came to America at 19 with nothing. She built a successful dressmaking business from her basement. She was tough, practical, and she had eyes that saw through everything. She came to every single one of my school presentations, every competition, every award ceremony. She was always there, sitting in the front row, nodding with pride. When I won the architecture competition, she took the trophy from my hands and held it up to the light. This is beautiful work, Kochani. You have the gift. You will build great things. I was 25 when she died. At the funeral, her lawyer pulled me aside. He handed me an envelope. She wanted you to have this privately. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a handwritten note in her shaky cursive. Brenda Kochani, build something they cannot ignore. You have the gift. Use this to start. Never wait for permission. With love, Babcia Helena. I sat in my car in the funeral home parking lot and cried until I couldn't breathe. She saw me. She always saw me. That $5,000 wasn't just money, it was permission. It was a bridge to everything I would become. By the time I was 26, I was working as a project manager at the architecture firm. I was good at my job. I understood construction, materials, timelines, budgets. I could read a building inside and out. I spent my days managing renovations for wealthy clients, and my nights learning everything I could about real estate investing. Dylan, meanwhile, was on his 4th job. He worked in sales for different companies, never staying more than 18 months. He always had some big opportunity around the corner, some promotion that was definitely coming, some deal that was about to close. And when things fell apart, when he couldn't make his car payment or his credit card bill, my parents were always there with a check. Sunday dinners became a weekly performance. Dylan would talk about his latest opportunity. Dad would nod along, impressed. That's what I'm talking about, son. You've got the instinct for this. You've got the confidence. Mom would glow. He's a natural salesman. He can talk to anyone. Then they'd turn to me. And Brenda, still drawing buildings? Still managing those renovation projects? Things are good, I'd say. Just staying busy. That's nice, honey. And they'd turn right back to Dylan. I wasn't hurt anymore. I was past hurt. I was in a place beyond anger. I was cold. I was calculating. And I was saving every single dollar I could. The seed money from Babcia Helena sat in a high-yield savings account gathering interest. I added to it religiously. Every bonus, every tax return, every dollar I didn't spend on going out, or new clothes, or anything that wasn't essential. My life became monk-like in its discipline. I had a goal. I had my grandmother's voice in my head. Build something they cannot ignore. Every morning I woke up at 5:30. I made coffee at home. Never bought it. I packed my lunch every single day. A sandwich, an apple, whatever was on sale. While my coworkers went out for $15 lunches, I ate at my desk. I stopped going out with friends. Every invitation was torture. Want to grab drinks? Can't. I'm saving for something. Girls' weekend in wine country? I wish, but I can't afford it right now. Concert tickets? Maybe next time. Eventually, they stopped asking. I became that friend, the one who never comes out, the one who's always busy, the boring one. My wardrobe came entirely from thrift stores. I learned to spot quality fabrics, good construction, barely worn items. I could put together professional outfits for $10. My coworkers would compliment my style, and I'd smile and say thanks, never mentioning that my entire outfit cost less than their coffee. My car was a 2008 Honda Civic with 160,000 miles on it. The air conditioning barely worked. The passenger door made a horrible creaking sound. There was a crack in the windshield that I just learned to look around. But it ran. It got me where I needed to go. That's all that mattered. I tracked every single penny. I had spreadsheets for everything. Monthly expenses, savings rate, projected timeline to my goal. I knew exactly how much I spent on groceries, gas, utilities. I gamified my own life. Can I get my grocery bill under $40 this week? Can I go an entire month without buying anything non-essential? Every dollar I didn't spend was a dollar toward my future. My apartment was tiny, 400 square feet, in a neighborhood that was safe, but definitely not trendy. The heater rattled. The fridge hummed loudly all night. But the rent was $550 a month. That was $200 less than comparable apartments in better areas. $200 a month was $2,400 a year. In 5 years, that was $12,000. $12,000 was part of a down payment. I dated James during this time, and he was so patient with me, so understanding, but I know it was hard for him. Want to go to that new restaurant? How about we cook at home instead? Want to take a weekend trip? Maybe we could do a day hike instead? He never complained, but I saw the confusion in his eyes sometimes. He made a decent salary as an engineer. He didn't understand why I was living like I made minimum wage. I couldn't explain it to him. Not fully. How do you explain that you're building an empire in secret? That you're accumulating the power to never be dismissed again? That every dollar you save is another brick in a wall between you and the family that erased you? My job as a project manager was my secret education. I was getting paid to learn exactly how much things cost, how long they took, which contractors were reliable, which materials lasted. I was learning how to be a developer while everyone thought I was just drawing plans. By the time I was 29, I had $23,000 saved. That's when I found it. A distressed single-family home in a working-class neighborhood. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, dated but structurally sound. The listing said, "As is, needs work." The asking price was $87,000. I offered 80. I got pre-approved for a mortgage. Put down 20%. 4,700 of it was Babsia Helena's money. The rest was mine. Every dollar saved over 4 years. At the closing, my hands shook so badly I could barely sign my name. I was terrified. This was everything I had. Every late night, every skipped dinner out, every "no I can't, I'm saving." All of it on this one single bet. When the title agent handed me the keys, I walked out into the parking lot and sat in my car. I just held those keys and cried. "Babsia," I whispered to the empty car. "I'm doing it. I'm building it." I spent every evening and weekend for 3 months renovating that house myself. I learned to lay tile watching YouTube videos, practicing on scrap pieces until my cuts were perfect. I learned to patch drywall, sand it smooth, make it look like the damage was never there. I learned to install light fixtures, carefully following electrical codes, testing everything twice because I was terrified of burning the house down. I worked until my hands bled. Literally. I have scars on my palms from where the tile saw slipped, where rough edges of drywall cut me, where I scraped my knuckles on tight spaces. I worked until I was so tired I would fall asleep on the floor in the middle of sanding. I'd wake up at 2 in the morning, covered in sawdust, my body aching, and I'd get up and keep working. There were nights I cried from exhaustion, nights I wanted to give up, nights I thought, "What am I doing? I could just live a normal life. I could just be the practical daughter they think I am. I could stop this insane secret mission and just exist." But then I'd think about that dinner table. I'd think about my father's dismissive pat. I'd think about my trophy in the garbage. I'd think about Babsia Helena's note. And I'd pick up the drill again. I learned that I was stronger than I thought. Not just physically, though I developed actual muscles I never had before, but mentally. I learned that I could push through doubt. I could push through pain. I could push through the loneliness of working on something nobody knew about. I was becoming someone new, someone who didn't need validation to keep going. When the house was finally done, when I walked through it one last time before the tenant moved in, I cried. But these were different tears. These were tears of pride. I had done this. Me. With my own 2 hands. With my own mind. With my own stubborn refusal to stay small. I listed it for rent. I had a tenant within a week, a young single mother who worked as a nurse. She walked through the house and her eyes filled with tears. "This is perfect," she whispered. "This is exactly what we need." $700 a month? My mortgage was $450. I was a landlord. And nobody in my family knew. The pattern repeated. I saved every dollar of profit. I lived like I was still in college. My apartment was cheap. My car was old. I didn't go on vacation. I didn't buy new clothes. Every single dollar went into the next property. Property 2 came a year later. Another single family. This one needed even more work. The roof leaked. The bathroom was growing mold. But the price was right and the neighborhood was improving. I spent 6 months renovating it, again doing most of the work myself. My hands developed permanent calluses. My back ached constantly. But when it was done, I had another $700 a month in cash flow. Property 3 was a duplex, my first multi-unit. This was a bigger risk, a bigger mortgage, but double the rent. I was terrified signing those papers, but the numbers worked. They always worked because I made sure they worked. I underwrote every deal conservatively. I assumed higher expenses and lower rent than market. I planned for vacancies. I planned for repairs. I never let optimism cloud my math. Property 4 came just 8 months later. I was moving faster now. My portfolio was feeding itself. The cash flow from properties 1, 2, and 3 was covering the down payment for property 4. The machine was working exactly like I designed it to. James started noticing changes in me. I was gone every weekend. I was exhausted all the time. I had bruises on my arms from crawling through crawl spaces. I had paint under my fingernails that wouldn't come out. "Brenda," he said one night, "what's going on? You're working yourself to death. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, "just busy with work projects." He looked at me with those gentle, concerned eyes. "You know you can tell me anything, right? Whatever you're doing, whatever you're building, I'm on your team." "I know," I said, and I meant it. But I still couldn't tell him. Not yet. The empire was still too small, still too vulnerable. I needed it to be bigger, stronger, more undeniable before I let anyone see it. Properties 5 and 6 came in the same year. I was 32 now. I'd been building for 3 years. My portfolio was worth nearly $1 million. The cash flow was substantial. I could have quit my day job, but I didn't. The day job was my cover. It was my credibility with banks. It was what my family thought I did. I couldn't give it up yet. Property 7 was a small commercial space with an apartment above it, my first true mixed use. The commercial tenant was a hair salon. The residential tenant was a retired teacher. The numbers were beautiful. This property alone cash flowed $800 a month. And then came property 8, the game changer. The one that would transition me from investor to developer. The mixed-use building on the east side, $340,000. The biggest deal I'd ever done. The one that would force everything into the light. And my family thought I did little renovation projects as a hobby. I never told them. I couldn't. Every time I thought about it, I heard my father's voice. "You're too in your head, Brenda. You need Dylan's confidence. You need to take real risks." If I told them, they would make it small. They would worry. They would tell me I was getting in over my head. They would probably tell me to ask Dylan for business advice. So I stayed silent. The empire I was building was mine. They didn't get to touch it. They didn't get to diminish it. My silence was my power. That brings us to this morning. Property number 8. The biggest deal I've ever done. A mixed-use building on the east side. Commercial space on the ground floor. 2 residential units above. The building was neglected, outdated, but the bones were solid. The location was perfect. It was listed at $360,000. I offered $340. They accepted. This wasn't just another rental property. This was my transition. This was me moving from small-time landlord to commercial developer. This was the jump my father always said I was too careful to make. I sat in the title office that morning, signing document after document. My business partner, Mike Rodriguez, a contractor I'd worked with for 2 years, sat next to me grinning. "You're doing it, Brenda. This is the big leagues." I just nodded. I couldn't speak. When I signed the final paper, when I held those keys, I felt like I was holding my entire future. I got in my car and called my boyfriend James. James Chen, civil engineer, the kindest man I've ever known. We've been together for 3 years. He knows I invest in real estate. He knows I'm serious about it. But he doesn't know the full scope. Nobody does. "Brenda?" he answered. "How did it go?" I closed on the building. My voice was shaking. "I did it, James." There was a pause. Then he said something that changed everything. "Brenda, how many properties do you actually own?" I sat in the parking lot of the title office, keys in my hand, and I told him, 8. 8 properties. Total value about $2.1 million. The silence on the other end of the phone lasted forever. Finally, he said, "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell anyone?" "Because they would ruin it," I said. My voice was barely a whisper. They would make me doubt myself. They would make it small. I had to build this alone, James. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You're not alone anymore, Brenda. I see you. I see what you built. It's incredible." I cried in that parking lot for 10 minutes. Someone saw me. Finally, someone saw me. But I had somewhere to be. Sunday dinner. The dinner where my parents gave Dylan $30,000 and called my career a hobby. The dinner where they told me to focus on settling down instead of my projects. The dinner that would become the breaking point. After Dylan's celebration, after the toasts, after the mocking, I excused myself. I went to the bathroom and locked the door. I looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a capable woman. I saw someone who just closed on $1/3 million building. I saw strength. Then I looked back toward the dining room. I heard them laughing. I heard Dylan talking about his new house. I heard my father's booming voice praising his son's courage. That was the moment. I didn't get angry. I got clear. They will see me, I thought. One way or another, they will see what I built. I went back to the table. I smiled. I ate my dessert. And I said nothing. The secret was still mine. For now. The next 2 weeks were almost peaceful. I threw myself into work on the commercial building. Mike and I gutted the ground floor commercial space. We had plans to turn it into a cafe. The residential units above needed full renovations. It was the biggest project I'd ever undertaken. James started coming to the site after work. He'd help me measure, plan, calculate loads. "You know," he said one evening, covered in drywall dust, "you're incredible at this. You should be doing this full-time. Forget working for someone else's firm." I laughed. Maybe someday. But even as I said it, I knew. I knew I was already doing this full-time in every way that mattered. My day job at the architecture firm was just the cover. This, the buildings, the renovations, the investments, this was my real work. Then came the call that changed everything. I was at the commercial building, painting the cafe space when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello? Brenda Scott?" a professional voice asked. "Yes, this is Susan Martinez. I'm a senior writer with the Regional Business Journal. We're doing a feature on young developers who are transforming distressed properties in the city. Your name came up in our research." My heart stopped. My name? How? "Your LLC," she said. "Helena Holdings. It's public record. We track deed transfers, building permits, business filings. Your acquisition pattern over the last 4 years is remarkable. 8 properties, mostly distressed, all renovated and put back into productive use. You're exactly the kind of story we want to tell." I set down my paintbrush. "I don't think I'm that interesting." Ms. Scott, a 33-year-old woman building a multi-million-dollar portfolio independently in 4 years? That's very interesting. We'd love to interview you. Can I buy you coffee? I should have said no. I should have protected the secret. But something in me. Maybe it was Babsia's voice. Maybe it was just exhaustion from hiding. Something in me said yes. We met 2 days later at a coffee shop downtown. Susan Martinez was sharp, professional, probably late 40s. She had a notebook and a recording device. She smiled warmly. "Thank you for meeting me. Let's start simple. Where did your startup capital come from? Family money?" I almost laughed. "No, the opposite. My grandmother left me $5,000 when she died. That was it. Everything else I saved working as an architecture project manager." She stopped writing. "You saved. How much total?" "About $23,000 for my first down payment. It took me 4 years. I lived like a college student. Ramen, old car, no vacations, just saving." "And your family? Were they supportive?" That's when I made the decision. I could lie. I could give the neat, clean story, or I could tell the truth. I looked at Susan Martinez and I chose truth. They don't know. My voice was steady. They still think I do little renovation projects as a hobby. She set down her pen. I'm sorry. What? So I told her everything. I told her about the science fair ribbon in the garbage. I told her about the scholarship that saved them money. I told her about Dylan's college loans and his serial bailouts. I told her about Sunday dinners where I was invisible. And then I told her about 2 weeks ago. My parents gave my brother $30,000 for a house, I said. At that same dinner, my father laughed at my renovation projects. He told me to stick to what I'm good at. He called my career a hobby. That morning, I had closed on a $340,000 commercial building. They have no idea. Susan Martinez stared at me. Ms. Scott, this isn't just a business story. I don't even know what to call this. This is an incredible human story. I looked down at my coffee. I thought about my father's dismissive pat on the shoulder. I thought about my mother's tears for Dylan and her mild, "Oh, that's nice for me." I thought about 28 years of being invisible. I want to tell it, I said. I want other daughters who feel invisible to know that you can build something that can't be ignored. You don't need their permission. You don't need their support. You just need to refuse to stay small. Are you sure? Susan asked gently. It will expose some things. Some family dynamics. I know, I said. I'm sure. The article was scheduled to run in 1 week. Susan called me with updates. The editor loved it. They wanted to feature it on the cover. They wanted to do a photo shoot. Could I meet a photographer at my first property? The building that started everything? I stood in front of that little single-family home, the one I bought when I was 29 with shaking hands and a heart full of terror and hope. It looked completely different now. Fresh sage green paint, new landscaping with native plants, a well-maintained front porch with a swing. My tenant, that single mother nurse, loved it. She'd lived there for 4 years now. Her daughter was thriving. The house was a home. The photographer was a woman in her 50s named Maria. She looked at me, looked at the house, looked back at me. "Okay, honey," she said. "I want you to look powerful. You built this. You own this. I want the world to see that. Put on this hard hat. Hold up your keys. And for God's sake, don't smile like you're apologizing. You have nothing to apologize for." I wasn't used to being seen. I was used to hiding, to making myself small, to apologizing for taking up space. But I put on that hard hat. I held up my keys, the same keys I'd held 4 years ago while crying in my car. I thought about Bapsia Helena. I thought about every Sunday dinner where I was erased. I thought about the science fair trophy in the garbage. I thought about Dylan's $30,000 check. I lifted my chin. I squared my shoulders. I looked straight into the camera, not with anger, not with bitterness, with quiet, undeniable power. Maria snapped the photo and looked at the screen. She smiled. "Perfect. You look like exactly what you are. A boss. A woman who built something from nothing." She showed me the preview. I barely recognized myself. I looked strong, confident, successful. I looked like someone who belonged on a magazine cover. I looked like someone who couldn't be erased. The article was scheduled to run on Wednesday. On Tuesday night, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Sunday dinner," she said. 6 o'clock. "Don't be late." Something in her voice was off. Cold. Formal. "Okay, Mom. We need to discuss something," she said. "As a family." Then she hung up. My stomach twisted. They knew. Somehow, they already knew. But the article wasn't even out yet. I called Susan Martinez. "Could someone have seen an advance copy?" "It's possible," she said. We sent advance copies to a few business contacts for quotes. Someone might have recognized your name. It's a small business community. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Wednesday morning, the article went live. James sent me the link. The headline read, How a 33-year-old architect built a 2.1 acres real estate portfolio while her family thought she had a renovation hobby. The photo was huge. Me, in my hard hat and work clothes, standing confidently in front of my building, arms crossed, keys visible in my hand. I looked strong. I looked successful. I looked nothing like the quiet, dismissed daughter who sat at Sunday dinners being erased. The article told everything. My grandmother's $5,000, the years of saving, the 8 properties. And yes, it included my family. It quoted me directly. When asked if her family supported her venture, Scott paused before answering. They didn't know. They still don't. 2 weeks ago, my parents gave my brother $30,000 for a house down payment. That same morning, I closed on a commercial building worth 10 times that. At dinner that night, my father told me my renovation projects were a nice hobby, and I should focus on settling down. I sat on my apartment floor and read my own life in print. My phone was off. I needed these few hours of peace before the explosion. When I finally turned it on, my phone screen went insane. 47 missed calls, 89 text messages, 3 voicemails that were probably all angry. Mom, call me right now. Dad, what is this article? You own 8 properties? Dylan, this is bullshit. You made us look bad. You made us look like we don't support you. But also other messages. Messages I didn't expect. My college roommate? Oh my God, I had no idea. This is amazing. You're my hero. Mike Rodriguez. Boss lady. You're famous. I always knew you had it in you. Random colleagues from the architecture firm. My old high school teachers. Old professors from college. The president of the local real estate investment club. People I hadn't talked to in years. Everyone had seen it. The article had gone viral in our city's business community. It was being shared on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on local news websites. People were commenting by the hundreds. Women were sharing their own stories of being dismissed by family. Other investors were asking me for advice. Business reporters from other publications were reaching out for interviews. The local TV news station sent me an email. We'd love to have you on our morning show to talk about your journey. A real estate investment podcast that I'd listened to for years wanted me as a guest. A women's entrepreneurship organization asked if I'd speak at their next event. The attention was overwhelming. It was terrifying. It was everything I'd secretly wanted and everything I'd been afraid of. But also, my phone was full of messages from people in my life who had no idea. My hairstylist. Girl, I had no clue. My neighbor from my apartment building. I always wondered why you were never home. Former co-workers. Wait, you quit to do this? Everyone had a reaction. Everyone had an opinion. And then there were the messages from other women. Strangers. Women I'd never met. Thank you for sharing this. I'm the invisible daughter in my family too. I'm starting to save my first down payment because of your story. My parents always supported my brother over me. This gives me hope. Message after message after message of women who saw themselves in my story. I sat on my apartment floor reading them and crying. I'd spent 4 years building in silence, thinking I was alone. But I wasn't alone. There were thousands of us. Thousands of daughters who were told we were practical while our brothers were told they were dreamers. Thousands of women who were dismissed, overlooked, erased. And now they could see that it was possible to build anyway, to succeed anyway, to become undeniable anyway. The local news wanted to interview me. A real estate investment group invited me to speak at their next meeting. A podcast about women entrepreneurs wanted me as a guest. My invisible empire had become violently, undeniably visible. I called James. "It's out," I said. He'd already read it. "How do you feel?" "Terrified," I said. "Liberated." "Both." He was quiet. Then, "You did the right thing, Brenda. You told your truth. Now they have to deal with it." My mother's final text came through. "Family dinner. Sunday, 6 p.m. You owe us an explanation." "You owe us?" I read those words 3 times. I had built a $2 million business and they thought I owed them an explanation for not telling them. I didn't respond. I would go to that dinner. But I wouldn't go as the apologetic daughter. I would go as the woman I had become, the developer, the business owner, the one who built an empire they refused to see. That week was surreal. I kept working on the commercial building, but everywhere I went, people recognized me. The hardware store, the coffee shop, the bank. "You're the woman from the article." That was so inspiring. It was overwhelming. On Saturday, Dylan called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Brenda." His voice was different, tight, angry. "You happy now? You made us look like terrible people." I didn't say anything. That article made it seem like we don't care about you. Like we're bad parents. "Did I lie, Dylan?" I asked quietly. "Did I make anything up?" There was silence. "No," he finally said. "But you didn't have to tell everyone. That's private family stuff." "It stopped being private when you laughed at my career at the dinner table," I said. "When Dad told me to stick to what I'm good at. When Mom told me to focus on getting married instead of my projects. You made it clear what you think of me. I just let the world know what I think of myself." He hung up. I sat there holding the phone. This was it. Tomorrow was the reckoning. Sunday, 6 p.m. I drove to my parents' house for what felt like the 100th time, but this time was different. This time they knew. I was wearing my work clothes. Jeans, boots, a flannel shirt. Not the nice blouse and slacks I usually wore to family dinners. I wasn't dressing for their approval anymore. I walked in without knocking. The house was silent. It's never silent. They were all there. Mom, Dad, Dylan, and Stephanie. They were sitting in the living room like it was an intervention. The newspaper was on the coffee table. My article, my face. I sat down in the chair across from them. Nobody spoke for a long moment. Then my father cleared his throat. His voice, usually so loud and confident, sounded hollow. "Why, Brenda? Why did you tell a reporter these things about us?" I looked at him. Really looked at him. I saw an old man who was genuinely confused. He actually didn't understand what he'd done. He thought he'd been a good father. He thought supporting Dylan was the right thing. He thought calling me practical was a compliment. "Why, Dad?" I said quietly. "Why not tell you, you mean?" He shook his head, frustrated. "Why tell a stranger? Why make us look like we don't support you? Why not come to us first?" "I came to you for 33 years, I said. My voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. "You just never listened. I tried at that dinner. I tried to tell you about the commercial building. You told me to stick to what I'm good at." Dylan laughed and called it a dollhouse hobby. "Do you even remember that?" My father's face changed. I watched the memory surface, watched him realize what he'd said, what he'd dismissed. He looked down at his hands. I was trying to protect you," he said weakly. "I thought you were stuck. I thought you needed to take bigger risks like your brother. I didn't know you were already." He gestured helplessly at the newspaper. "Doing all this." "Because you never asked," I said. The words hung in the air. "Not once. You never asked what I was working on. You never asked about my goals. You never asked what I was passionate about. You never asked if I needed advice or support, or even just for you to show up and see what I was building. You just assumed I was fine. You assumed I didn't have dreams because I didn't shout about them like Dylan did. My mother spoke, her voice breaking. You were always so capable, Brenda. So independent. You never seemed to need us. I turned to look at her. Mom, I said, and I felt tears starting to burn behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I needed you. I needed you at that science fair. I needed you when I won that scholarship. I needed you to care about my architecture degree as much as you cared about Dylan's football games. I needed you to ask me about my life instead of just assuming I was okay. She was fully crying now. I'm so sorry, she whispered. We stopped looking. We just stopped looking at you. My father's voice was hoarse. I thought practical was a compliment. I thought I was teaching you to be smart, to be careful. I didn't know you were building all this. I thought you were... He struggled for the word, hiding. Playing it safe because you were scared. I wasn't hiding, Dad, I said. My hands were shaking now and I clasped them together. I was working. I was saving. I was studying. I was sacrificing everything to build something real. You just couldn't see it because it didn't look like what you thought success should look like. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't Dylan's way. So you decided it wasn't real. Then Dylan spoke. He'd been silent this whole time, just staring at the floor. That $30,000? His voice cracked. I needed it. I couldn't have closed on the house without it. My job, it's not what everyone thinks. I'm barely making my quotas. The house we bought, it's already showing problems. The inspector we used missed stuff. There's foundation issues, electrical issues. I got a quote yesterday. $60,000 in repairs. He looked up at me for the first time. Real looked at me. I have $20,000 in credit card debt from furnishing the house. Stephanie and I fight about money every single day. That $30,000 is already gone. It's just gone. And you, he gestured at the newspaper, you were building real things. You were building assets. I was just trying to look successful. Stephanie, his wife, said quietly, maybe we should have been more like you. The power in the room had completely shifted. For 28 years they had sat in judgment of me. They had decided I wasn't ambitious enough, wasn't bold enough, wasn't enough. And now they were sitting here realizing they had been blind. My father spoke again. Would you, he struggled, give us advice? On Dylan's house? The repairs? We don't know what to do. All eyes were on me. This was my moment. I could say no. I could let them drown in the consequences of ignoring my professional expertise. I could walk away. But I'm not them. I didn't build this empire to punish them. I built it for me. I'll send you my contractor's number, I said. Mike Rodriguez. Hire him. Listen to him. Get a real structural engineer in there. And Dad? He'll tell you the same things I would have told you 2 weeks ago if you'd asked. If you'd listened. My father nodded slowly. I'm listening now. I looked around the room, at my crying mother, my defeated father, my humbled brother. They finally saw me. After 33 years, they finally saw me. That dinner was the turning point. Not because everything was fixed, it wasn't. But because the truth was finally on the table. They couldn't unsee what they'd seen. I couldn't go back to being invisible. The weeks after were awkward, careful. My mother started calling me, not to talk about Dylan, but to ask about me. How's your day, honey? Are you working on one of your buildings? It was stilted, formal, but it was something. Yes, Mom. I'm renovating the commercial space. It's going to be a cafe. Oh, she'd say. That's wonderful. Be careful with the electrical. My father started texting me. Questions about investments, about property taxes, about contractor issues at Dylan's house. He was asking for my expertise. Finally, It was his way of saying, I see you. I respect you. I was wrong. Dylan and I had coffee one afternoon about a month after the article. He looked tired, defeated. The arrogance was completely gone. I'm sorry, he said, staring into his cup. For all of it. For laughing at you. He shook his head, for being so blind. You were building something incredible and I was too busy performing to see it. Too busy pretending to be successful to notice you actually were successful. I didn't say anything. I let him sit with it. He continued, his voice cracking. That house we bought. The one with Mom and Dad's $30,000. It's a disaster, Brenda. Your contractor, Mike, he came and did the inspection like you told us. $68,000 in repairs. The foundation is shifting. The electrical is from the 70s and it's a fire hazard. The roof needs to be completely replaced. We're drowning. I'm sorry, Dylan, I said, and I meant it. I wasn't sorry enough to bail him out, but I was sorry he was learning this lesson the hard way. He looked up at me. Can you teach me? About budgets? About actually managing money instead of just spending it? About making decisions based on numbers instead of just, he gestured helplessly, wanting things? I'll help you, I said. But you have to do the work, Dylan. I can't save you. You have to save yourself. You have to stop waiting for Mom and Dad to rescue you every time you make a mistake. You're 36 years old. It's time. He nodded slowly. I know. I've been thinking about that a lot. About how you never asked them for anything. How you built everything yourself. I always thought you were just, I don't know, less ambitious than me. But you were more ambitious. You just didn't need an audience. That's exactly it, I said. I didn't need an audience. I needed results. We met for coffee every week after that. I taught him to make a budget, to track his spending, to understand the difference between wants and needs, to plan for the future instead of just reacting to the present. It was like teaching a child, honestly. He was so financially illiterate it was shocking. But he was trying. He was actually trying. Stephanie, his wife, joined us after a few weeks. She was humbler now too. Can you teach me about investing? She asked. I want to understand what you do. I want to build something too. Not just buy things to make the house look good on Instagram. So I taught them both. About compound interest, about assets versus liabilities, about delayed gratification, about playing the long game. It was strange being the teacher when I'd been the dismissed student my whole life, but it also felt right. I wasn't hoarding my knowledge. I was sharing it. Just not with people who refused to listen anymore. Over the next year, things slowly changed. My family dynamics didn't become perfect, but they became honest. My mother volunteered with Habitat for Humanity, trying to understand my world. My father actually asked my advice before making financial decisions. Dylan slowly, painfully dug himself out of debt with my contractor's help and a strict budget. My business kept growing. Helena Holdings acquired 4 more properties. My portfolio reached $3.2 million in total value. I left my day job at the architecture firm and became a full-time developer. Mike Rodriguez became my full business partner. We started flipping more ambitious properties, taking on commercial projects, building something real. James proposed on the roof of my commercial building. The cafe space below was nearly finished. The sun was setting over the city. He got down on one knee. You built an empire, Brenda. Let me help you build a life. I said yes, without hesitation. 1 year after the article, I was invited to speak at a regional real estate investment conference. The topic was building wealth without family money. I stood on that stage in front of 300 people and told my story. I talked about invisibility, about being dismissed, about deciding to build anyway. Afterward, dozens of women came up to me. I felt invisible in my family, too. You inspired me to start. I'm saving my first down payment. Thank you for telling the truth. That's when I understood. This wasn't just about me. This was about every daughter who was told to be practical, while their brother was told to dream big. Every woman who was dismissed as having a hobby while men with less knowledge were called entrepreneurs. Sunday dinners at my parents' house became different, quieter, more balanced. One evening, my father raised his glass. To Brenda, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Who built an empire we were too blind to see? I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry we didn't see you. I raised my glass. To Babcia Helena, I said. Who saw me first? After dinner, I drove to the cemetery. I hadn't been there since the funeral 6 years ago. I found my grandmother's grave and sat down on the grass. I pulled out my phone and showed her photo the picture from the article. The one of me in the hard hat. Confident, strong, visible. I built it, Babcia, I whispered. Something they couldn't ignore. I placed the phone against the headstone for a moment. The sun was setting. The light was golden. I sat there in the peace of it. My phone buzzed. A text from James. Where are you? At the cemetery, I wrote back. Visiting Babcia. Want company? Always. He showed up 20 minutes later with flowers. We sat there together as the sun went down. He put his arm around me. You did it, he said softly. You saved yourself. I leaned against him. I thought about 22-year-old Brenda eating ramen, saving every dollar, desperate to be seen. I thought about 29-year-old Brenda, signing papers for her first property with shaking hands. I thought about 33-year-old Brenda, sitting in that title office with keys to a commercial building. I had become the person I needed when I was 22. I had saved her. I had built her an empire she could stand on. I had given her a voice that couldn't be dismissed. We drove back to the city. I stopped at Pine Street at my first property, the little house that started everything. It looked beautiful now, well-maintained, loved. My tenant's car was in the driveway. Lights were on inside. Someone was home. Someone was safe and warm because of something I built. This was my $30,000. This was my big risk. This was my dream that someone believed in. I built it myself. With my own hands. With my own mind. With my own relentless, invisible work. I don't need their applause anymore. I don't even need their apologies. The work is enough. The buildings are enough. I am enough. The forgotten daughter is gone. She packed her bags and left that Sunday dinner table. The woman who's left, the woman who built everything in silence, has finally been seen. But here's the thing. Here's what I learned. The best part isn't that they finally see me. The best part is that I finally see myself. My name is Brenda Scott. I'm 33 years old. I own 12 properties worth over $3 million. I built it with a $5,000 inheritance from my grandmother and a decade of work nobody witnessed. I built it while they thought I was playing with dollhouses. I built it in silence until silence was no longer an option. I am not the overlooked daughter anymore. I am the developer. I am the business owner. I am the woman who refused to stay small in a family that needed her to be. And to every daughter watching this who feels invisible, who's been told her dreams are hobbies, who's watched her brother get $30,000 while she got a pat on the head, I want you to hear this. You don't need their permission. You don't need their money. You don't need them to see you. Build it anyway. Build it in silence if you have to. Build it until it's so big, so undeniable, so real that they can't look away. Build something they cannot ignore. And then, when they finally see you, you'll realize the truth. You were never building it for them. You were building it for yourself. If this story resonated with you, drop a comment below. Tell me about a time you felt invisible. Tell me about what you're building. Your story matters. Subscribe for more stories of women who built empires from nothing. Hit that notification bell. And remember, the best revenge isn't living well. It's building something so undeniable that they have to acknowledge you built it. Thank you for watching. Now go build your empire.